Hey. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jeff Green, president of Green Team Realty. Thanks for joining us for the March 19th housing market update. Let's jump right in and check out some statistics as to where our housing market is headed. Exciting times. Things are changing. There's a lot to talk and present here. All right, so existing home sales, we're going to look nationally at first, and you can see this is a 3-year comparison, 17 versus 18 versus 19. The later the years go, the darker the color gets, and as you can see here from the January numbers, a decline in all 3 years. That's interesting. When you take a look back over the last, 18 versus 17, you can see that, there was right around August, things started to turn consistently in terms of year-over-year decreases. So stay tuned each month as we do this housing market update to see where those stats ultimately head. Over to the right here, you'll start to see that the Northeast is still chugging along. It's been interesting to watch Northeast stats versus all the other sections of the country because we always seem to lag. I don't know why that is. I'm sure somebody over at Case Schiller could explain that to me, but they're not here right now, so we'll have to wonder. But on the whole, pending home sales are down year over year by region. So that's another little tidbit of information. This is interesting as far as pricing goes. You can see over, this is a composite of the 20, top cities in the U.S. over the last 10 months, and you can see that pricing is steadily decreasing. But what is important to note here as we stay on this slide is that it's more of a soft landing. I don't think we've seen anything towards a crash, so to speak. But we're historical norms are around 3.6%, but we're right around that mark already at 4.2. So pricing is slowing as well as activity. On the mortgage side, here's an average. I like to look at this column here, an average of all four entities here that are making projections as to where they feel rates will be in 2019, and they're projecting that rates will continue to increase just below 5%, which in my opinion is still historically a very low rate. I know a lot of mortgage people freak out about that because now people aren't going to refi and that impacts their income, but in my opinion, for the resale market, new construction, those sorts of things, I don't see that moving the needle all that much. I think from a money perspective, we're in pretty good shape. Let's take a look locally here. Orange County, New York, units sold. You can see year-over-year comparisons. 2019 is in green. We're at or below the last couple of years, but still hanging in there from units sold. This is really the most important report to look at, where we're headed and where things are going. So it's still kind of hanging on, but we're not in an increasing market anymore in terms of the number of units sold. Average sales price, you could see in the red 18, we were way up all year long last year, but right off the bat, we have year-over-year increases, but not our highest. February 2014 was higher. Asked to sold ratio, in other words, what percentage of the asking price are homes selling for, took a little bit of a dip here. As the year goes on, we're going to start to get more data and see how relevant that really is, but still at a very high rate. And you could just go back there. I mean, 3 3/4 points off the asking price, not a huge level. You can see, you were down to 6 points in 2014 and below that in 13 and 12. Days on market is still continuing to be a hot market here in our local territory, Orange County. You can see days on market is still south of where we were last year. That shows a hot market. Going south of the border into New Jersey, the county bordering orange, that's Sussex. The units sold is down below 2017 levels coming out of the gates in January, February. I think that's interesting. Average price, though, is doing just the opposite. It's actually increasing. And I think that we may actually see an increase in Sussex County in terms of price because we didn't really see it all that much last year. And I do think that they're elevating the average price down there. Asked to sold ratio, similar numbers to what you saw in Orange County, around 96, 97%. And days on market, again, a little bit lower. So I think that, what we're going to see is that it's still a hot market. We're going to check in with everybody in just a minute, our panel that is. This is interesting. I'm going to have to improvise here because this slide was not on my deck before I prepared for the meeting, but our engineer here, Melissa, slid it in there, so it's good. Maybe we'll come back to this and check it out in a little bit, Laura Marie, who's joining us from the state of Florida. But this is interesting. So it's showing a pretty substantial decrease in year over year just for the month of January, 19 versus 18, 13.6%. That's a big variance. So that'll be interesting to see. However, prices have increased by the same margin, 13%. So that's interesting. Pending inventory is down from the previous year. So that's interesting. We'll check in on Florida. Closed sales. What else can I glean real quick here? Year to date, 685. We're going to skip this one, move on. Laura Marie, maybe we'll come back and you can walk us through these. Here's where I wanted to land, and we're going to end right here before we get to the panel. This is fascinating. This is good information that Ali Chamois, who's going to join us, she's on our panel. She shares a lot of good information with me weekly and a lot of realtors that she works with. And one thing that she keyed me into was people who are aging in place, okay, and how this is having a profound impact on the housing market. And what does that mean? Well, people from the good times generation wouldn't you want to be part of the good times generation? I mean, what better generation name could you possibly come up with? I mean, I don't want to age myself, but that would be a fun one to be a part of. And then previous generations to the good times. This is a comparison. So what this is saying is that generations previous to the good times were moving out of their houses at a much faster rate than the good times generation is. And the good times generation, they're still very much alive. They're aging in place. And what's happening is that you're seeing that they're staying in their homes. So, and they're staying in their houses to a large extent. And when you take a look at these charts here, this is interesting. When you take a look at all of these right here, good times cohort, war babies cohort, and the baby boomers, all of those generations lumped together is 1.645 million homes, with a variance of 1.95 million homes that are not coming on the market as compared to the previous generations they would have. So this is interesting. I find that to be very interesting. We're going to open it up to the panel in just a minute, but let's take care of some housekeeping items. Next housing market update, April 16th, 2 p.m. Make sure to be here. greenteamhq.com/HMU. That's how you can stay in touch. And thanks to the team over at Realty for once again sponsoring our endeavor here with the housing market update. Realty is a real estate referral network for agents. So if you're an agent watching this and you're not a member yet, you should join. It's a no-brainer. ReallyHQ.com. You can find out more information. Okay, so let's stop my share. Let's introduce the panel. Everybody should be able to see you at this point. So I'm going to go in the order of which I see you. So Laura Marie joins us from the St. Pete area in Florida. She's with Keller Williams Realty St. Pete. She is the team leader of your home sold team. Welcome, Laura. Thanks for being here. Give us a little wave.
Thank you for having me. Hey, great to see you today.
Thanks for being here. Karen Gonen from Green Team New Jersey Realty. Say hi, Karen.
Hi, everyone.
Vicki Garby from Green Team New York Realty.
Hello.
And Ali Chamois, who is having a little bit of video problems. She's just here on audio. Ali, how you doing?
I'm very good, Jeff.
All right, thanks for being here. So let's start locally, and then we'll go to Florida, and then we'll come back around and we'll talk about this issue of aging in place. And then Ali, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think those mortgage projections are, and do you really see rates increasing? Because there's something to talk about there, because the overnight federal funds rate is actually coming down a little bit for a while, which was impacting the 30-year mortgages, so on and so forth. All right, so Karen,
yes,
you're on the housing market update pretty much every month, and your feeling has been it's going to be a strong market in 19. We still have this issue of inventory shortage happening. Not as many foreclosures as there used to be because the banks are fixing things up. Where are you now? Are you still a month later in that same area?
absolutely. I'm even more over there just because of the stats that we just saw. The fact that in 2017 we had more homes sold just goes to show that there were more properties released by the banks. Now the properties that we're seeing here are definitely not being released at the same amount. Flippers are scared to purchase because they're purchasing higher than they were before. Cost of material is about 30% higher than it was. So they're just afraid to buy these more expensive properties, and the banks are flipping them themselves.
Okay. All right. So the takeaway is the housing shortage has more to do with the fact that the units sold are going down than the demand for the buyers. Is that your opinion?
My opinion is that we have less REOs because most of them have been sold, and therefore there isn't that much inventory, and sellers are still sitting on their houses. I do have a few that have released their houses for listing, but they're still holding on just to see how strong spring market is before putting them on the market.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Vicky, your thoughts?
Much of the same in Orange County. I think we continue to have the inventory problem. Buyers are still out there when a house is properly updated and, you know, priced right. It's going quickly. I do think that investors are out there hardcore. I'm seeing that they're out there more than ever. Experienced flippers who've been doing it for years, as well as new people to the market who are watching the shows on TV and, you know, they think it's so easy to make a quick $100,000. New people are trying to get in the flipping market, I think. And recently, very recently, I have been seeing some quite a bit more, at least in our, you know, I'm only in New York, so I'm looking in the Orange County region, more REOs hitting the market, but they're going quickly. And I'm talking about the ones that the banks haven't renovated. So I know what, you know, Karen's saying that they are renovating some of them, and it depends on the location and the condition of the home. But the ones that they're not renovating, the flippers are out and they're scooping them up.
Interesting. So Laura Marie, let's go all the way down south to the sunny state of Florida and check in with you. So, I mean, you're hearing what we're thinking and experiencing up here in the Northeast. How does it translate down there?
I think in many ways there's a lot of similarities. In my market, literally, so just for Pinellas County, we had all of 31 REOs total, and we had 11 short sales. And that's in the, forgive me, I'm using January stats because I don't have the February yet. But there's a very limited number of REOs, and the ones that are being sold are not really being sold very much under market. So I do agree with Karen, where there's sometimes like the investors are not wanting to purchase some of these homes, and then because of the cost of materials and updating. However, that being said, I still have a lot of investors who are hardcore looking for those right deals. In my particular area, you have to really look hard, and you have to be really willing to update a massive amount, because Pinellas County was developed between 1920 and 1960. And so a new house is like 1980s. Woohoo! And that's really not what the buyers are looking for. They're really looking for those updated, polished, shiny homes. So there's still a lot of opportunity, but the margins have definitely shrunk, even in this area. We do have a lot of investors coming in from around the world because we're in Florida. Everybody wants to be here. But the actual REO inventory, very, very low. It's actually, in many ways, to get ahead of the market, you have to look off market, and not be waiting for the REOs and the short sales, because there is, in this area, a huge amount of fixer-uppers, if that's what you're looking for.
Okay. Good input. Good input. So, Allie, let's, before, I'm curious to know who on the panel could chime in on the aging in place, but just specifically with regards to mortgage rates, let me just pull up the slide here so we know what we're talking about. Let me just go back. It must have been after this, right? Sorry, we're getting there. There we go. So, do you agree with these projections? I mean, like, where are we right now in your mind on the average 30-year fixed, and where do you think we're going to end up?
Well, The funny thing about interest rates is everybody thinks that the rate is the rate for everybody. And
Right.
as you all probably know, that changed really several years ago. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have tiers, credit score tiers. If you're between 620 and 639, there's an add-on. If you're between 640 and 659, there's an add-on. If you're between and it escalates. Really, years ago, a 720 credit score was considered a really good credit score. And right now, if you have a 720 credit score and you're putting down 15 or 20%, which is a nice down payment, you're still getting a hit in price from Fannie and Freddie. So it's really, these numbers are just, I think, the cost of money, the bond market and what the yield is. But when you talk to a buyer, I could have a buyer now at 4.5, and I could have somebody else at 5, simply because of the down payment and the credit score. And I'm not talking FHA, I'm talking conventional financing. As far as projections, I think people ask me every single time when they apply for a loan, we're getting ready to lock in their rate or not lock in their rate. Well, what should I do? Should I lock?
Right.
Should I float? Are they going to go down? Or are they going to go up? And I will never, ever, ever advise them on that, because I'm just going to share a quick personal story. I bought my home. I downsized a couple of years ago, right when Trump got elected. And I was floating my interest rate, and we all know what happened the day after he was elected. And I didn't lock in my rates, and rates went up about 0.75% in a matter of a few days. So all these forecasts and predictions, I mean, they're great, but we can have a crazy thing happen like an election, right, and it all kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately why I'm asking you what you think your predictions are, and you've done a very good job of skirting the question and not putting yourself on record. So it's okay, I'll let you off the hook. But one tidbit of information that I pulled out of there, and I was happy to hear it actually, is that Freddie is a lot tougher. These mortgages that are being sold off to Fannie and Freddie are really, there's stringent requirements, which is really polar opposite of where we were 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago. And I think that's one of the reasons why we might just have a real good steady market here for a bunch more years to come, because there's not a lot of subprime lending going on. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate, yes.
So what that means is ultimately these mortgages are being paid every month. There's
Yeah.
not a whole lot of defaults happening. People are vested, there's skin in the game, and the banks are making money, so they're going to continue lending money. So that means that credit's not going to necessarily tighten up, which at the end of the day, it's all about credit, what they're willing to extend. So despite the fact that we're slowing down here, I think we might have a good slow and steady, increase or decrease to everything for a long time. So that's good news.
And believe it or not, I am seeing a little bit loosening up on credit standards, just a little teeny bit, a little bit of loosening up. There are some subprime lenders coming into the market a little bit. I'm not saying there's a lot of it, but there's a little bit coming back, a little bit. Yeah,
it was funny. I had a previous client that had bought years ago in 2003 or 4, took on a subprime loan, lost their house to foreclosure, and called me up and was like, "Hey, is there any subprime products out there?
Right,
I want to get going again."
Exactly.
Like, it's funny. People are willing to roll the dice. So I guess it's okay, in certain extents, but not to be widespread like it was. So that's good to know that that's not there. So anybody on the panel, I'm just curious to know, because I don't really know all that much. I mean, my parents and my in-laws, the oldest of those 4 is 85. So I guess he would be considered a good timer. That's my father-in-law, Larry, great guy, and they're aging in place. And so really are all of my parents. You know, they're all aging in place. And I think it probably has a lot to do with the cost of nursing homes, right? And other options. I mean, do you guys think that that's what's really this is all about?
I think health has a lot to do with it too. I think that people have the ability to have house care. Home aides come to their home now. Their health is better. They get help from their families. So yeah, I think people are definitely staying in their own home. They don't want to leave their home.
Yeah, and I sit on the charity foundation for St. Anthony's Community Hospital, and every now and then, you know, the CEO of the network will come in and talk. And over the last few years, I know that there's a push from the federal government for outpatient services all across the, you know, the medical industry, from whether it's, you know, a younger person or an older person. So I know that there's a trend just from reimbursements and how things are, they want people to stay in their homes. So this is interesting. You know, I think that this is a whole new dynamic, which means that, you know, if I'm a builder, which I'm not, I'm going to really think critically about that, right? Because it just means that we may just literally need more housing units to be able to supply all of the people that literally live in this country, you know?
The other thing to consider, Jeff, is the fact that people are living a lot longer than they had in the past. We're living healthier lives. Our medicine has advanced. A lot of people are going the natural route, which we hadn't before. So we do need more houses because people are living longer. The other thing to consider is that a lot of people are moving in with prior generations. So for instance, I've had a few houses that I sold where the parents and their kids were buying the house together because the parents were getting pretty up there in age as far as 70s, 80s. The kids are in their 40s, but they have young children, so they all want to live together. So it feels like we're kind of going back to living as extended families, which is what they do all over India and Europe anyway, but perhaps the US is kind of transforming its household to a whole new level.
Interesting.
Oh, I agree completely.
I agree with Laura there. I see it a lot. I see people buying homes, brothers and sisters, kids and parents all the time. Yes. Yes.
Laura, you're seeing the same thing in Florida?
Yes, I'm seeing the same thing in Florida. And if anything, like from here, like I actually have clients who are wanting to kind of like downsize to smaller things. They're not wanting to take care of yards so much, but we do have a lot of 55 plus communities. And those communities are actually creating a support network. And, you know, you have people healthier, living longer, and they're wanting to stay independent, you know, with less, you know, yard care essentially.
And I just want to add to one thing that Karen said, which I agree with her point. And as we have more two-income families, so mom and dad are, you know, both parents are working and grandparents are staying around to help with the kids, I think. So when they're in their 50s, 60s, they're staying around to help with the little ones. And instead of, you know, maybe relocating and moving to Florida in our case, and then as they get older, roles are reversing. Now their kids are helping to take care of them. So that's
a really good point.
What Karen was saying.
I see a lot of that also down here. Like, as you were saying, Karen, the multi-families, and I sell so many multi-family units and everything so that everybody can have kind of their own space, but still live in community together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell you, I feel a sense of gratitude because I don't have to live with my brothers or sisters and my mother. With all due respect to all of them, because I love them dearly, I just don't want any of them, you know. So
they're all close by.
They are close by, but they do not live with me. That's a whole.
We all stay in the same town.
Oh, that's good stuff. All right. Well, I think that's a wrap. It was a great discussion. I learned a lot this month. I hope everybody who's watching did as well. And thank you to our panel once again, Laura Marie from Keller Williams, St. Pete Realty, your home sold team. She's the team leader and a great realtor. If you're looking to move down to Florida, we're looking to connect to Laura Marie for sure. And Karen Gonen, Green Team New Jersey Realty, Vicki Garby, Green Team New York Realty. Two spectacular realtors in the New York and New Jersey markets. Definitely list your home with them for sure. And Ali Chamois, thanks so much for joining us. A great mortgage banker that I've known probably for over a decade now, Ali, I would say.
Yes, at least. at least, yeah.
Which means that Allie's been through this with all of us, right?
Yes.
Which means that
Yes.
she's a true pro. You can't make
Yes.
it through those big up and downs if you're not good at what you do. So thanks everybody for being here. Have a good one.
Thanks, Jeff.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.